Today I'm going to take you through a quick practice that's all about the hips. So if you're looking to just stretch out and work on some hip flexibility, especially if you're required to do a lot of sitting throughout the day, or if you're a runner, more than likely your hips are pretty tight. Now you may be surprised to hear that we carry our emotions in our hips. The hips are the location for our sacral chakra, or energy center, and that's the chakra that's associated with emotions, creativity, sensuality, and movement. So by stretching and opening our hips, we not only release that physical tension that we carry, but we can also release some bottled up emotions, and we can tap into our own sensuality and creativity. In this video, I'm going to be showing various progressions to each of the stretches. So only take those as far as you need to feel the stretch. A stretch should never be painful or forced, but don't shy away from a little bit of discomfort. So think about it as surrendering into the stretch rather than forcing it. Now, as far as props, you will want either a yoga block or just a cushion. And if you have sensitive knees, you may want to fold up a small blanket or a towel to place under the knees for several of the poses. So let's go ahead and begin in tabletop, hands and knees. We'll start with our child's pose, but with a wide-legged position. We'll bring the knees pretty far apart, almost as wide as your yoga mat if you're using one. We're going to bring the toes together, round through the spine, and push the hips all the way back toward the heels. If your head doesn't quite reach the mat, you can always use the block for the head. And you can reach the arms forward, get a nice stretch in the shoulders as well. Holding this wide-legged child's pose for a few breaths. Finding the breath, closing the eyes, allowing the hips to sink down heavily toward the heels, and softening across the front of the hips. The sacral chakra is associated with the color orange, so throughout your practice, feel free to close your eyes, visualize that nice, warm, beautiful, glowing orange light, or an orange jewel or stone, and focusing on the hip area. Take a few more breaths, bringing some awareness to the hip area. How you're feeling right now. Is one side a little tighter than another? Are we feeling pretty good? And ease out of that wide-legged child's pose. We'll bring the knees back in, hip distance apart. Now coming back into tabletop, knees aligned under our hips. Begin with some movement, extending that left leg straight back. Bend the left knee and draw some circles with the left knee. So the movement is originating from the hip, but imagine the knee just tracing a big circle. Try to keep equal weight under both hands. Encouraging some movement through the hips, that mobility, but nice stability through the position and the core. Now, let's reverse that direction. It's a little bit awkward. And one more. Now release the left knee down. Now extend the right leg. Sometimes it feels good to just extend it, and then we'll lift the right leg, bend the right knee, and begin to draw your circles with the right knee, coming from the hip. The hip, of course, is a ball and socket joint, so it does allow for quite a bit of mobility and range of motion. Now reverse that direction. One more circle. And release the right leg down. Now we'll come on to the elbows. Extend the left leg. Let's flex that foot. And then lift the left leg just slightly and cross the right leg. So we're just crossing the midline of the body with the left extended leg. Now this may provide enough of a hip stretch on the outer left hip. If you need deeper, just walk the elbows off to the right. And that'll give you a nice stretch down that whole left side of the body. Try to relax through the neck and the jaw. Take another breath. Walk the elbows back to center. If you had them off to the right, we'll bring that left knee back. Go ahead and extend the right leg now, flexing the foot. Lift the right leg, crossing the midline of the body. And if this provides enough stretch, stay here. Otherwise, walk the elbows off to the left side. Relax through the neck, the face, the jaw. Walk the elbows back to center and bring the right knee back in. We'll come back up to the hands and knees to a tabletop for our dragon pose. If you have the block or cushion, position it to the top right hand side of your mat. Walk the hands a little bit ahead of the shoulders. Now extending the right leg straight back, let's bend the right knee and then swing that knee under the belly, under the chest, and settle the right foot as close to the top of the mat as you can. If it doesn't get there all in one sweep, scooch it up there as best as you can. Now we'll bring the right arm inside the right leg, and you can walk your right foot off to the right edge of the mat so we have a little wider base. Take your block or your cushion, place it across the front of your mat. You can place both hands on that. That will ease us into the stretch. We want to make sure the right knee does not extend over the right ankle, and try to slide the left knee back as much as you can, creating some distance between the right foot and the left knee. So we're creating a stretch through the left hip flexor and in the inner right hip. You can stay here with the hands on a block. You can even take it to the next height of the block, or maybe your hands can come right down to the mat. Take it to what you need to do to feel the stretch. If you'd like to progress deeper into this, make the stretch a bit more intense by bending that right elbow, so caving in to the dragon pose. If you would prefer to go any deeper, you can take it all the way down onto the elbows. You can always place the elbows on the block as well. And let's breathe into it. It might be a little bit uncomfortable. Breathing and directing the breath to any area that we feel some tension or a little bit of resistance. If you are on the elbows, come on back up to the hands. Bring the right arm to the outside of the right leg. We can inch that back in. A little bit more aligned. A little bit of balance. Line the shoulders up over the hips. Reach the arms up over the head. Nice side bend stretch. We're going to grab the left wrist and take it to a side bend to the right. You might feel that down the whole left side of the torso and even deeper into the front of the left hip. Release Release the left wrist, bring the hands back down, and then we'll just swing that right leg back around. And just extend the legs back a little bit, kind of shake it out. So now you know what's coming on the other side. Place the block or the cushion to the front left side of your mat for our dragon pose. Walking the hands just slightly ahead of the shoulders. So we open up the tabletop, extending the left leg straight back. Lift and bend the left knee. Now sweep it underneath the body and settle the left foot as close to the left hand as you can. Bring the left arm inside the left leg. Inch that left foot off to the side so it's closer to the outer edge of the mat with a little bit more space here. Grab your block or your cushion and feel free to place your hands on it. It's always a nice place to just start out and see where our hip is feeling good and maybe where we want to take it. You can always go with a higher level block. Try to keep the chest lifted so we're not collapsing into the pose. Feel free to stay with the block or cushion or place the hands directly on the floor. Option 2, go deeper by bending that left elbow, or even deeper by lowering down onto both elbows, either elbows on the mat or on a block. Breathing into the pose, directing the breath to any area that's bringing us some resistance. Surrendering into the pose, whatever version you're practicing. And if you're on the elbows, let's come back up to the hands. Swing that left arm back around the other side. We'll inch that left foot in so it's a little bit more aligned. Finding our balance, taking the weight off our hands, shoulders over hips, arms reach overhead. And this time, left hand grabs the right wrist and a big bend to the left. Just breathing into that. A little bit intense. And release the wrist. Bring the hands back to frame the left foot and swing the left leg around. Now let's come on to our bottom and just face straight ahead. Have a seat in the center of your mat. We'll give the knees a little bit of a break. Come into your cross-legged pose. Let's place the right leg in front of the left, but rather than crossing, let's position the right ankle directly in front of the left ankle. So they're just nice and aligned. The knees might be way up in the air, and that's totally fine. That's pretty normal. We want to focus more on anchoring the sits bones into the ground and a slight tilt forward with the pelvis. Extend the arms. Bring the heels of the hands up so we're clawing the fingers into the floor. Slight hinge forward at the hips. Maybe this is all you need to feel that sensation in the right hip. Maybe it feels good to crawl the spider hands a bit more forward or forward fold. Or maybe you feel like you'd rather come down to the elbows if you need to make the stretch a little bit more intense. You can always place the cushion or the block under the head, keeping that right ankle directly in front of the left ankle. Take a few breaths, noticing any sensation that you might be feeling in the right hip. Slowly round up. And that pose is actually called square pose, or a slight version of what we call fire log pose. Go ahead and shake the legs out. Come back into that with the left leg in front. The left ankle is aligned directly in front of the right. Grounding the sits bones into the floor, tilting the pelvis forward. Don't worry where the knees are. Lifting nice and tall through the spine. And let's use our exhale to hinge forward from the hips. Extend the arms. Maybe we don't need to come forward too far. Spider fingers. Pulling our chest forward, anchoring the sits bones back down into the ground. Maybe lowering to the elbows if you need to feel the stretch. You take what you need to feel the stretch. Noticing any sensation that you might be experiencing in the left hip. Try to relax the shoulders and the neck. You can always prop the head onto the block. Start rounding back up slowly to your seated position. Let's shake the legs out. Next, we'll come into a kneeling upright position. If you have sensitive knees, here's where you might want to place just a small folded blanket or towel right under the knees. So we're kneeling upright, and then swing the left leg around to the side. Open that left leg so that your left knee and foot are facing toward the left wall. So we have our left foot and our right knee in the same lane. Think of that left knee pressing back toward the back wall. Now extend the arms to the sides, palms down, and gaze over the right shoulder. This pose might look a little bit familiar. This is our Warrior Two Virabhadrasana, the little added flare into the hips. This one targets the hips a little bit more intensely. Gazing beyond the left fingertips, nice and lengthened, and then gaze center. Now flip the palms forward and let's reach to the left, opening up through the arms, and just settle the left hand to the mat. We can flip that right palm and just rest that hand behind our backside. If the hand doesn't quite reach the mat, we can always place the block there. Use the left elbow to gently press outward into the left inner thigh. Opening up the right side of the chest. Maybe we can look up slightly. Look straight ahead. If you want, we can always lean into that a little bit more. In this case, it's okay if we just want to bring that knee slightly ahead of the ankle, encouraging some movement in the stretch. And go ahead and slowly release out of that pose. Let's swing the leg around and just come into tabletop so we can do a cat-cow stretch. That always feels good. Come back up onto the kneeling upright position. And then we'll swing that right leg around. We'll point the right knee and the right foot to the wall to your right. So the left knee, right heel are in the same lane. Arms reach out to the sides, palms down, and let's gaze over the right shoulder. Just gazing out beyond the right fingertips, opening the chest, drawing the outer right knee toward the back wall. Pretty intense stretch for the groin. And gaze straight ahead, palms forward. Now reaching toward your right and opening up until the right hand, maybe the fingertips meet the mat. Maybe we want to place the block here. Flip the left palm and place the back of the left hand behind the lower right spine. Gazing up. Gently pressing that right elbow into the right inner thigh. Opening up the left side of the chest. Gazing forward, you can always take it a little bit deeper, adding some movement, some flow, honoring the sacral chakra. And go ahead and return back to tabletop. Sneak in some cat-cow And then we'll swing the legs toward one side and slowly come onto our back side. Go ahead and lower all the way onto your back side, bending both knees. Position the right foot on top of the left knee. Allow that right knee to just fall forward. If that's a little intense, you can always slide the left foot more forward, wherever you need it to be, so you can feel that stretch in the right hip. Just breathing into it. You can stay here if you're feeling the stretch. Otherwise, we can make it just a little more intense by hugging that left thigh in toward the chest. We can do that by either grabbing behind the left thigh, or we can interlace the fingers below the left knee, hugging the left knee in towards us, but the right knee is pressing away from us. Hugging the left knee in toward the chest and still pressing that right knee forward. Go ahead and close the eyes. Take a few breaths. Soften through the left ankle. You might feel a stretch in the right hip, or also in the right glute, or even the right lower back. Try to keep the shoulders relaxed. Release the left foot all the way back to the mat. Uncross and straighten the legs, shake out the legs. Let's bend both knees. Open up the feet as wide as your mat. Arms can just rest out to the sides. Now gently drop that right knee inward. That may be enough of a stretch for you. A little bit different direction, going with the inward hip rotation. If you'd like a bit more intense version of this, we can rest the left foot on top of the outer right knee. If that bothers the knee, then don't rest the foot there. Perfectly fine just rotating that left leg in. Now if it feels good, let your left hand rest on your belly. Right arm reaches back behind you. So we're getting a nice lengthening down that whole right side of the body and the front of the right hip. Try to press that right hip downward. Take one more breath. And go ahead and release it. Just ease out of the pose. Give your knees a little hug. Lift the chin to the chest. And just do some rocking back and forth, massaging the spine. Return both feet to the mat, this time crossing the left foot on top of the right knee. And if that's too intense, just slide the right foot forward. Allow the left knee to drop forward toward the top of your mat. And then if you'd like to go a bit more intense, hug that right leg in toward the chest, whether you're grabbing behind the thigh or grabbing underneath the right knee. Take what you need to take to feel the stretch. Keep the right ankle, foot relaxed. Think of the right knee coming towards you, but the left knee pressing away from you. Close the eyes, focus in on the sensation into the left hip, the left glute area, lower back. Release the right foot back to the mat. Uncross. Bring the feet wide, both knees bent, and this time dropping the left knee inward for that inward hip rotation. This might be plenty, especially if you have sensitive knees. Otherwise, we can place the right foot on top of the left knee for a little bit more intense stretch. Right hand on the belly and left arm reaches way back behind us. Close the eyes, focusing on that sensation down the left front of the hip. Slowly ease knees out of the pose. Uncross. Give both knees a hug. Lift the chin to the chest. Rock side to side. Nice massage for the spine. Now we'll wrap up our hip openers with a reclining butterfly pose. So have the cushion or the block handy. Lower all the way down onto your backside. Lift the hips and place either the cushion or the block, whatever's most comfortable for you, right under the glutes and the lower back. Arms can reach out to the sides, palms can face up. Soles of the feet come together and the knees open up. Now, if you prefer to do this without the block or the cushion under the low back, that's perfectly fine. If that doesn't feel quite right, first you might just want to make any adjustment that would feel more comfortable. Otherwise, lying flat for reclining butterfly, perfectly fine. Let's place our hands on our lower abdomen. That way, it's another way to stimulate the sacral chakra through that touch on the area of the chakra. Close the eyes and relax through the shoulders, the neck, the jaw, allowing the hips to open and soften, tuning into any sensations that you might be feeling in the hips. And we'll take a few breaths. Maybe visualizing that glowing orange light. Be focusing on the area of your sacral chakra, tuning into any emotions that may have been stimulated through your practice today. Now bring the knees back up. Bring the feet about hip distance apart, and then slide the legs forward, the feet forward, so your legs are extended. Let the arms rest at your sides with your palms facing up. So we're in a little different Savasana position for our corpse pose, our final pose of our practice today. And again, you can always do this without something under your lower back if you prefer. You can stay here for as long as you'd like, for as long as it feels good. Take the block or the cushion out. Very gently lower the spine all the way down and give the knees a gentle hug. Chin toward the chest. Rocking up to a seated position. So I hope that you feel a bit more open through the hips, maybe a little softer, and perhaps even cultivated some of your own creativity, sensuality, or stirred up some emotions through your practice. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you back again very soon. Namaste.